Welcome to my front yard garden tour for the month of March. Now, this is going to be good and interesting because yes, a lot of things are waking up. Not tons of cleanup has been done at this point, and we are not at a spot where everything is just beautiful and awesome. No mulch has been added at this stage. No edging has been done to make those lines as crisp as I love them, but things are starting to become colorful and there are definitely things to point out. So let's learn a lot as we walk around the front yard garden today. Hi you guys, this is Nicole from My Carolina Garden. My garden is located in growing zone 8B and I am in southeastern North Carolina. We are going to start right up here near my front pathway as it leads up to my front porch so I can show you some of the things that are waking up but how they look kind of scraggly coming out of winter. One plant that I want to talk about is the lemon coral sedum. I talk about it a lot because it's very easy to grow. Now it's a semi-evergreen because yes, you can see some of this like lime green yellow color even during the cold months of the year, but I wanted to show you how scraggly it can get in the winter. I have a lot of empty spaces or I have a lot of legs on some of these pieces and it's not like overly desirable. So essentially, I would say some parts that are really heaping and kind of like a mounding style perennial, that's awesome. That's the way I like it. That's the way I want it to look. But if I do have scragglers or leggy pieces, I'm just going to cut those back. Cut them back. Even if it's with my hands, it doesn't really matter. I'm not overly particular about this. This stuff is super duper 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 easy to root. So I could drop it even back to the ground and maybe those pieces I just broke off are going to root again. So ideally this is going to look like a beautiful kind of lime green blanket here right by my walkway. And then as we step just a smidgen back, this trailing verbena that is giving us these hot pink blooms. This trailer right here, like let's call this a leg. I could bury this piece here, any one of these legs, and get it to re-root again, which means it's just going to sprout the plant from where it's rooting and then take off from there. Why would I want to do that when I'm already getting these beautiful legs with the beautiful colored blooms? Well, that would be for dividing purposes. If I want to re-root this spot so that I can then chop it off of the parent plant and move it somewhere else, I can do that. Here's another example of something I'm going to cut off of this plant. It is extending its legs so far that it's actually coming up here through this Nandina bush. Now I see I have some buds on the plant right here, so I don't want to cut that off entirely and lose it, but if I don't have roots close to the bottom of the Nandina so I can separate this plant, I'm going to make it root so I can separate it and actually just take this piece of plant and put it somewhere else entirely. But yes, verbena coming back like this with beautiful color early on when it's still chilly out is awesome. I like the idea of having some sort of plant as like a border plant along the edging of my flower beds. Now I am very particular about keeping a crisp line at the end, and I know everybody's different. Some people use like rocks or bricks or something as an edge. I just like a clearly defined line, which I will be fixing up here. This liriope or liriope, however you want to say it, was meant to be a plant like that kind of kept going around the front of my flower beds. But it was small when I put it in the ground. So then last year I had added these dianthus, which are supposed to be an annual plant. You can see some buds coming up on here. I like dianthus. I talk about it a lot, actually, how much I like it. Dianthus can be like even carnation. Some people call them pinks. It's got a bunch of different names because there are a bunch of varieties of it. But the thing I discovered last year is I don't like this particular plant as my border plant. It was not very showy. It didn't bloom continually. So you have to really keep up with deadheading and of course, you know, taking off the brown pieces of dead foliage and things like that. So not my favorite border plant, but if I move this somewhere else and maybe bunch it up into a bigger section, that might be more beneficial. But this liriope right here, or liriope as I said, you can see this is the new fresh growth coming out for this year. So it begins to just look like this. I sometimes snip off all the old growth, sometimes I don't, and I just kind of let it mound over. I've done both. It doesn't seem to affect how much new growth I get at all. So it's just probably a style choice if you want to get all these oldies off. To give the front yard garden bed some fall interest, I had planted the decorative cabbage and even some beautiful pink mums over here. Both of them looked awesome in the fall, but this is now kind of awkward. We have a very long stem with some other cabbages coming out of it, etc. I may just chop this down, see if I could just reroot this head elsewhere, see what happens over here. I'm kind of up in the air about it, but a decorative cabbage is not an overly expensive plant. It's generally used as an annual anyway, so if I remove it completely, that would be fine too. But I am impressed with the color it's kept and also how kind of just healthy it looks even right now. So my DIY garden easel that I can just change the flower arrangements out seasonally is still here, looking great with the violas, and it's going to stay that way for a little bit yet. As we come around the corner, I have the weeping yaupon holly. Big fan of this plant. It's taken a lot of abuse from different tropical storms and hurricanes, and it has just been amazing how it keeps coming back and back. These gardenias, I'm only so-so about. I think they're about a year old, maybe a year and a half old. They're okay, not my favorite. I wish I picked something different for this spot. I don't know if they get too much sun or what, but they're only okay. And then traveling in this direction, you've recently seen me kind of rework this space over here. First of all, my loropetalum hedges. I love these fringe flowers. They're fuchsia Chinese fringe flowers. Boxwood does amazing there. Those guys are original plantings that the builder actually provided us on this property when we moved in 10 years ago. And then this is the bed that was completely reworked. So we have some irises that are going to bloom later on. Of course, this is more of that. It's the same exact kind of dianthus that I showed you in the front there, but because these are new plants from this year, that's why they're full of flowers at this stage. But again, imagine these clumpings all together giving us a beautiful sea of color. I love that idea. All of these plants, like the Dusty Miller right there is the next line toward the back, they're going to gain a lot of size this growing season. And then of course, I can't say enough wonderful things about my Kilmarnock willow that I recently found out is actually named from a place in Scotland, which I love. My family and I visited Scotland last year. We had an amazing time, so it holds a special place in our heart. So that just made this weeping tree even more glorious to me. So the flower bed with the Kilmarnock willow is just to my left. This flower bed here is the Peninsula garden. We have quite a bit of lawn in between the two flower beds that ideally is going to shrink over time. Now, typically what I love to do is if I have a flower bed that has a clear front and a clear back, I like to have tall things growing in the back and then shorter things growing in the front. The Peninsula garden, however, since you're going to be able to walk around it on three sides, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I have all of my decorative grasses in the middle, which get quite tall. I shouldn't say middle, but this kind of level right here, this layer. And then I'm building out with some shorter plants coming this way, again with the walking path between Kilmarnock willow area and this flower bed being right here. So the lower things that I have growing, I have some Artemisia, which I just recently cut back some of its leggy branches and dead foliage. I have more dianthus over here, again a different style because I just love it, and we're sticking with some lower growth. I have a lot of different varieties of things here, like I have some dahlias going on that there's nothing to see just yet because that's a summer flower. But I have all sorts of things that over time we're going to look at more color, more beauty, and it's just not showing yet. So the Peninsula garden starts out with having the golden sword yucca. I go to a crepe myrtle, and then this bit of beautiful fresh greenery is the daylilies. So these daylilies are all orange, I believe, and they spread very, very, very easily. So I divide those and move them into multiple parts of the yard all the time. I have a ton of coneflowers in this section, these being black-eyed Susans and this being some echinacea. The echinacea is going to start blooming first. It's already getting some fresh foliage on it, and I just got to do some cleaning up of the black-eyed Susans there. Moving in this direction, I am going to have a ton of different kinds of plants in here. I have primrose, evening primrose that's yellow, twilight primrose which is pink. I have mums, I have blanket flowers, I have hardy hibiscus, a lot of things that just don't look like much right now. This is one of my decorative cabbages from last year that I did take the top off so I can use it in one of my container arrangements on the front porch. We're going to see if this does anything besides sprouting more around the outside. And again, if it needs to come out of the ground, it does. No biggie. I have plants that are going to be newly added into the front gardens, though I'm not sure if it'll be here in the Peninsula garden, which gets quite full of some of these things. They get really big. But I have some gorgeous coleus that not only is great as colorful foliage that now can tolerate some sun, but you can propagate these plants so easily just by breaking off part of the stem, or I should say cutting off part of the stem, rooting it in water and going from there. So I fully intend to use this coleus to make many more plants of it. But besides that, just some other little goodies that I want to share with you are, this is the Grace Ward Lithidora. The blue and the yellow of the Coreopsis I love together because of sort of a complementary color pairing. Purple and yellow are actually complementary colors, but you know, the cool and the warm together, I'm all about that. So these are things I'm looking to add into the landscape in the very, very near future. All of these things, by the way, are on sale, and that's of course my favorite. Some goodies that are actually springing to life, and you can see it, are that trailing verbena with a lot of purple blooms on it. That was just a small little cutting I got from my neighbor, is now really spreading out. That is something I'm probably going to divide up as well because it really is taking up a lot of space at this point. And then this, I have a pincushion flower starting right here. You can really just see one bud that's standing up tall, but I have a couple others that are still low. Here's the thing about me. I had not been very good about planting in mass groupings or in drifts. That is something I told you I want to change this year because I want more impact in the garden. So I think maybe while the pincushion flowers are also on sale at the garden center, I need to just buy a few more so I have a beautiful grouping, and then you'll be able to see lots of little purple blooms. Another thing I wanted to show you is right here. I have a Denver Daisy Rudbeckia, which is one of my favorite Rudbeckias because it's multicolored and has big bloom heads on it. Well, that is showing me some foliage right now at a time when, like we just saw, not a lot of the coneflowers have fresh foliage. This is another example right in front of me. Coneflowers, nothing new and fresh on it just yet. So clearly I have a lot of clearing out to do of weeds and things like that. I mean, you can see some weeds right around these canna lilies. The canna lilies are just starting to sprout up some fresh green growth just because it's been a little bit more mild lately. But what I wanted to actually show you here was this plant right here, which is a guara, Crimson Butterflies guara. This plant is super cool because it's got like this nice red and green colored foliage, but then the flowers actually stand up tall on these little tiny wisps up here, and they look like pink butterflies sparkling over the top. Well, what's neat and what's happening is this is self-seeding. So I now have some other pieces of it like right here, and I'm going to show you a bigger piece of it that direction, and that is fun. You get more bang for your buck when you get plants that want to self-seed like that. As you can see, my magnolia tree has lots of pollen on its foliage. We have pollen everywhere right now. The magnolia tree is sort of the anchor to the Peninsula garden that juts out that way. Everything coming this way along the fence line is my favorite, what I refer to as my island of misfit toys or my garden of misfit plants. So everything in this direction was either given to me through a garden share, is a clearance plant, is a division of a perennial of my own, down or something like that. So it's kind of that place where you put all the plants where you don't really know where else they should go right now. Becomes a hodgepodge, but sort of a beautiful one. So lots of work is going to be done in this garden this year, but I wanted to show you the very front. This is that Guara Volunteer. A little baby came right out of the seeds from the last Guara I was showing you. So it's cool. Again, multiple volunteers in this garden. So we're just gonna walk and talk as we walk down the fence line here. I obviously have to get my drip irrigation tube buried under the dirt instead of letting it be shown like that, which is awful. This right here is tiger lilies. These tiger lilies have like almost like onion grass, the little tiny bulbous roots that just start dropping and moving everywhere throughout. When it rains, it helps these things to move inside the soil. When the soil temperature changes, these things move and shift under the ground. So I'm gonna have to kind of neaten up all these tiger lily roots and kind of baby plants here just to make it more showy, more grouped, better grouped. What's interesting and wild about this liriope right here, again, I was trying to make the liriope be the edging to all my flower beds. Still looking scraggly right now. This is all the tiger lily in here as well. So it really just got mixed up. I'm gonna have to untangle those babies so they can both perform. These are my junipers planted in the fall, got them on a clearance sale last year. The idea here is we need to stop this erosion that's happening as it's going down into our drainage ditch. So we're looking for things that are like ground covery to fill in our space. Lemon coral sedum is another one. It can be a great ground cover. You just gotta keep it cleaned up, trim off the leggy edges and let it kind of bush up. So that's the idea that's happening over there. I have bits of the creeping moss phlox in a few different spots. They were just pieces that were moved around the yard as well. So all of these phlox right here, the idea on all of them is to spread out, be ground covers, let me have to buy less mulch for my flower beds, but also really have their roots hold in the soil so we don't have so much of an erosion problem. Knockout roses, these were planted in the backyard. I transplanted them last year. That is a piece of one that's growing into its very own shrub. And then of course this one is clearly much bigger. So I'm gonna have some beautiful pink flowers on this in not too long from now. And then at this point, a bunch of blank spaces because I need to fill it all in. Very much a work in progress out here, but it is one of the things that's top on my to-do list for this year because, well, all my neighbors drive by on the road and can see this, and this is not the best display of my gardening talents. So I really want to fix this space up and make it look awesome this year. So fun things are sprouting to life right now. I have my hostas are all coming up, which leads me to say now is actually, or early spring is a great time to divide up your hostas. Once you can see those nubs starting to come up out of the ground, it makes it so much nicer to divide the plant up. And it's a lot easier than when it is fully leafed out and you could potentially damage your leaves. So that was just a little tidbit I thought of. But I'm looking forward to actually utilizing this great weather that we're having to fix up my gardens, get rid of some of the weeds, get rid of more dead foliage, and start planting some more colorful things. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing this kind of before shot before the gardening season fully gets underway and seeing all the changes then that are going to be happening every single month as we do a tour moving forward. I appreciate you all. I appreciate your comments and your love. And until next time, happy planting.